Hello and welcome. I'm Annie Moyer. This is Sun and Moon Yoga Studio. We are here for meditation and a little bit sharing of the wisdom of the ages. And thank you for joining me. So let's start as we do each week with some quiet sitting. So you can find yourself rooted into the ground, a nice long breath in as you establish the way your body is being held by the earth in this moment. And notice the way you also rise back up away from the ground. So we are simultaneously descending and arising. And as those two energies move opposite each other, our breath mirrors that opposite and simultaneous action. We inhale and we exhale. The breath arises and then it departs. So noticing that pattern, your own breath, your own alert and intentional posture, and settle in. If you notice the distractions are a lot, you can think of your inhale as a nice, eager, thirsty scoop in of this particular moment. And then let it linger for as long as you can. Extend that inward scoop of breath and presence. And then gently let it go, only to recognize the room that we make for the next breath in, the room that we make in our mind for the next moment of which we can be intentionally present. An easy sweep of inhale, a soft breeze of exhale. sweet, easy presence, recognizing the natural tendency of the mind to wander. Let that be part of the sweetness, in that it's dessert when we come back. Mind trails away, we realize it, we've become present, we have re-entered the moment, and then we're back in that sweet spot. Take another couple of breaths. Reestablish presence and recognize your immediate surroundings. Welcome back. So it's all over the news, the images that were captured by the brand new NASA James Webb Space Telescope. And we thought that the Hubble telescope captured some pretty amazing images, and they pale in comparison literally to the sharp, bright, spectacular images we're seeing of our very own universe. And what we're looking at are baby stars. Somebody described it as stellar nurseries, where new explosions are happening all the time and rendering these bursts of light. What we're learning from this is that there's anywhere from 100 billion to 1 trillion galaxies alone in the observable part of our universe. And each one of those galaxies has billions to trillions, so billions to hundreds of billions of stars, a lot of stars. And we think about how our entire existence relies on one star. So the magnitude of this reality is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Another scientist talked about how wherever they aim the Webb telescope, there's no blank sky. It doesn't exist. Everywhere they look, there are galaxies. And they're just bunches and bunches of gas and dust forming, in some cases, what look like cliffs and mountains. And there's radiation that's operating on these clouds of gas and dust that make them look like steam coming off. And it's just phenomenal. There's one giant exoplanet that's almost all gas and accordingly half the mass of Jupiter. And that one alone is over 1,000 light years away from Earth. And it orbits its star every 3 to 4 days. Imagine a year in 3 to 4 days. Sometimes life feels like it's going that fast, and sometimes it feels like it's going super slow. Another thing we're learning is there's the chemical footprint of water out there, which calls to mind the question of, is there life? More on that later. So the light in these images is just spectacular. And it does sort of conjure these notions of like, what's the meaning of my life, and am I so insignificant in the face of this vastness that we're now seeing in Technicolor? One of the galaxies, or one of the collection of galaxies that these images have captured and that they're showing us is one of the galaxies that was pictured, 70 years ago at this point, in the movie It's a Wonderful Life. In the opening scene, they show what we had at that time, even before the Hubble telescope, the images of this particular galaxy. And it was intended to represent the two angels who were having a discussion, and they were praying for George Bailey, that he would find his way back to a place of gratitude and understanding about how important his life really was. This is Stephen's Quintet is the name of this collection of galaxies that was pictured in this movie in the 1940s. And I love that it was really addressing the sort of existential question of this character in this movie, which was that I wish I'd never been born, and maybe everything would everything have been better had I not been here. And of course, I don't think it's a spoiler alert to tell you that the movie teaches him and us that, of course, things would not have been better. And it was a good reminder of the importance of his existence, the real power of being present and recognizing that, as minuscule as we are relative to this unimaginably large universe that we live in, we do make our imprint. We do shine our own light. This particular collection of galaxies is actually, the way the scientists are describing it now, really quite active, and in fact pretty violent in terms of the way these stars are ripped, the gases and the light is kind of ripped from neighboring galaxies, and there are all these collisions which are creating these other dwarf galaxies. And what spawned from the wreckage is even more stars. And it's evocative in my mind of how, when challenge arises, when things are hard and it feels like we're headlong into ruination, that still light emerges and we can see our way forward. And I find that fairly inspirational. So I want to pause here and do another short session of sitting with the notion of ourselves as a small speck of light, as the tiniest star. The coverage has likened the size of what we're seeing to a grain of sand held an arm's length away. But yet, we matter. We are light filled, and we do shine forth. So as we sit in the acknowledged relative smallness of who we are, we can still bask in not just our own light, but in each other's. And what would that feel like to conjure that notion that we are basking in a sort of eternal light? And as we breathe in, we open ourselves a little bit and a little more and a little more to that light. And as we breathe out, we shine it forward, to the sides, to the rear, all around. Perhaps we could imagine that what's fueling this light that we are is the stardust of every breath. We take it in, we get recharged, and then we give it away. What if we suggested to ourselves that we are glistening inside as we breathe in this stardust, as we are fueled by this very same galaxy that is so many, many light years distant away? As we sit and breathe and stay present, perhaps we can feel the resonance of that glistening light. Take a few more breaths. Awaken to your immediate surroundings. Let in the actual light of wherever you're sitting. The famous Buddhist teacher and writer Alan Watts describes two problematic mythologies that we tend to use to understand the universe. One of them is the ceramic model, where it suggests that we're just a bunch of separate lives swimming around, held by some substance that is other than us. Fish in a bowl. And the other problematic understanding is what he calls the automated model, where there's nothing at all holding us, that we're just machinery, that there is just machinery that's mindlessly operating on us. And we have to fight that machinery into submission in order to be happy or even just to survive. But these images, don't they tell an entirely different story? It's one with no end in sight, because these stars that are just being born billions of light years away, we can't even grasp how the significance of that. We can't even grasp, yet we know intellectually how they are us and we are them. So that same matter makeup of gas and dust and elements and light that we're looking at, that's that arm's length and grain of sand size and distance away, and we're looking at it with such awe, is exactly who we are. That is us. And Alan Watts wrote, I'm quoting now, "Any good scientist knows that what you call the external world is as much you as your own body. Your skin doesn't actually separate you from the world. It's a bridge through which the world flows into you and you flow into the world." The great sage wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita says that which the world calls day is the night of ignorance to the wise. Meaning, if you believe that what we see plainly in the light of our own sun, that one of billions of other stars, is all there is, we're forgetting that there's a much larger understanding of who we truly are, that in the night, in that dark sky, there is no darkness. The Webb telescope has proven that to us. As the scientists said, everywhere it pointed, there was only light. They couldn't find any blank sky. And so the wise understand that when we look up and we think there is emptiness, we haven't yet woken up to the truth that there's no such thing. One of the astrophysicists who was interviewed on NPR this morning said, there is almost certainly other life in the universe. The question of whether it's intelligent life is a more tangled knot to consider. We are rare, highly likely that we are very rare in our existence of intelligent life. However, we are probably not unique. And so that's not to render us to feel small and insignificant, but to help us realize simultaneously the rare and special nature of our own existence and the likelihood that we have never been, and we never will be alone. So We are luminous and we are connected, and we really are all one in what seems like a dark night sky, but is really only just light. Let's take a little more time breathing in, breathing out, sitting in quiet space that is not at all dark, not at all alone, but glimmering, luminous, powerful, and extraordinary. The breath comes in, the breath goes out. We begin again. Noticing again the way the breath rises and falls. And bring your awareness back to your immediate surroundings. Let in the light of your room. The description of this slice of the universe that was observed, that we're looking at in these images as the size of a grain of sand in the sky, if we held it an arm's length away, recalled to my mind the first 4 lines of William Blake's Auguries of Innocence. This may sound familiar. To see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. A 116 lines later, to end this poem, he addresses that same question that is that the Bhagavad Gita conjures in that verse that I shared about the light of day being to the wise the dark of night. And here Blake plays this, what we're seeing as a kind of a false comfort versus everything that we can't see is where true divine space lies. And he writes, some are born to sweet delight, some are born to endless light. We are led to believe a lie when we see not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night when the soul slept in beams of light. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night. But does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day? So those poor souls who dwell in night are not poor at all, not even close. They are enriched by the wonder of what we've been treated to be able to see by modern technology in these last couple of days. And I hope that you can spend some time looking at these images and basking in the wonder of all of it. And I wish you deep inner light and peace and wonder. And I thank you for sharing this time. Be well. See you soon.